You all know the standard Web 2.0 business model that looks like this? This is the part that everyone thinks is tricky when getting users is also pretty challenging. But there's a government 2.0 version, and it looks like this. So what happens in that miracle? You know, how do we actually make passion happen? Well, the social media folks tell us this, that we can just be intimate friends with everyone thanks to social media. And so this is their fantasy. I'm not comfortable with fantasy or luck models for passion. And as an engineer, I figured the only way to understand how to make passion happen is to actually study passion, to reverse engineer passion and say, what are the elements that we find in things where people are passionate, and if we can study those and figure out what they are, maybe we can use those as a map to drive that. And the kind of passion that we want is not where people just say, oh, I have an interest in this, or I care about this. I mean, the word is used a lot for things that have nothing to do with passion. The kind of passion that we need to be looking at is the passion people have for something where they are so into it that they are constantly learning, they're constantly growing, they're constantly developing. So the lights are here, but how many of you have an interest in photography or digital photography? Quite a few. Okay, so you may understand this particular quote, which reflects people who have a passion for photography. And that's the kind of passion that we're actually talking about. So when you look at passion, things that people are passionate about, no matter what those things are, causes, hobbies, whatever it might be, you find a set of common elements. And it looks like this. So I'm just going to let these come up. And just think about these. Think about things that you've been passionate about. All of these things, you know, these reflect someone who's really engaged in a topic in a sustainable way. So that's what we want. But there's one element that you find across everything, and it's that where there's passion, there are people kicking ass. They are doing something where they feel like they're kicking ass. And because this is not a pleasant feeling. So people don't sustain passion for things they continue to suck at. Now, we have some interesting challenges, like how to get people, you know, to actually snowboard the second time, which I really don't know why anyone does. So the reason, or I should say one of the reasons that passion is really compelling for people is because when they're pursuing something and learning and growing, they start to have a higher resolution. They have deeper, richer experiences for the things that they're passionate about. The more they learn, so for example, the more you learn about a particular style of music, you actually hear more than the rest of us. You hear subtleties. It's as if the music changed its resolution, its bit depth, its sampling rate, the more that you actually learn. People who go outside and look at the sky, depends on what city they live in. In LA, this would be way too many stars. This is what they see. Someone who starts to understand astronomy starts to see more. Someone learns a little bit more about astronomy. For $4.99, they buy this Star Walk app for their iPhone or their iPad, and next thing you know, they're on Google, and they're looking up light pollution and annoying their neighbors and starting to be conscious about something just because they started to have a higher resolution by learning more about the night sky. It's as if the sky itself changed. So high res means deeper, richer experiences, and that's the kind of thing that we need to create for people, or we're not going to have passion, because it always exists where there is passion. So yeah, this is an obvious thing, but it's amazing how little we focus on that when we want to help people become passionate, because we're so focused on our role. We're going to make better products. We're going to make better services. We're going to deliver better things for people. They really don't care what you do. I'm not passionate about what you do. I'm passionate about what I do. It's your job to enable that. So here's a template that we use for people a lot, which is quit thinking about making a better X. Think about making a better user of X. And some people say, well, that's a pretty slim distinction, but it's not. For example, I work with authors a lot. This distinction can mean ripping out 200 pages designed to make the author look smart and adding 200 pages that make the actual reader smart at whatever it is. Or as programmers, you're familiar with the idea of making a killer app, but that's not what we want to make. If we want passion, we need to make a killer user. And that is a different mindset, and it might be a completely different feature set when you stop thinking about what you're delivering and start thinking about what they're doing. But then the question is, killer at what? Because not everything seems like it can generate passion. But let's look at this. We have data. We have services. None of those are important until you look at the bigger, cooler thing that those things are a subset of. And those are the things we need to be enabling and teaching and helping people with. So, for example, surfing. Well, that's a no-brainer because that's a much more interesting, compelling thing. And if you think of kicking ass as a superpower, higher resolution as a superpower, one way to tell if you're working on something that people can become passionate about is picture it on the suit. All right, so if someone learns about astronomy, yeah, star defender. He's the person who actually now cares about light pollution because he has a higher resolution for the stars in the night sky. But recycle guy, this is challenging. Water quality guy? You know, yes, there are things where people can have a higher resolution, but sometimes we have to bridge them into that. So these things don't necessarily seem like superpowers. We wish that they were. We logically don't understand why they're not, but we know they're not. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with this statistic, but it's been pretty well studied that if you had coronary bypass surgery, imagine for a moment, bleakly, everyone in this room, we've all just had coronary bypass surgery. And now your doctor has told you that if you don't change your lifestyle, not only will you, at the least, you'll risk having another surgery, but you will also die. Would you change? Of course, everyone thinks, well, yeah, of course. But only 1 out of 9 of you would change. So if you look around at a few people seated in your row, only one of you will change and the rest of you are toast. So if we can't get people to whip up passion to save their own life, what hope do we have to generate passion for other things that we care about that seem less relevant? Well, it's interesting because there's this. People have an enormous amount of passion, for example, for their pets. And I won't ask you to raise your hands, but I bet at least half of you in here have your pets on a healthier lifestyle regimen than yourself. Your pets are fitter, they get more exercise, and they have a more consistent regimented diet. So people care about, lots of other things, and we need to hook into that. Now, I don't know why there's a whole thing about, there's some attitude around honor students and pets, but people care about their pets. So pets are sort of a gateway drug to other forms of passion, and this is what we see. People become passionate about one thing, and it spills over, and we can use that. So, for example, now you've got your power tools out, and you're doing projects for your pets, or you're doing, environmental cat toys. I actually don't know what that means, but this is a book on Amazon. Environmental cat toys. Because you care about your cat, next thing you know, you're doing other things. This is fun with your cat. Science kit. Science projects with your cat. So we've just bridged someone through their love of their pets to a passion for other things. And that's what we need to use for things where we can't get people whipped up. So we need to wrap things into a more passion-friendly context. We need a Trojan horse for the things that are not immediately compelling. So here's just 3 very lightweight ways to do that. For things that are not immediately compelling or passion-inspiring, and we need to hook people into where you can eventually get to something that is. We can just teach something cool. Now, I realize how this turned out. This is the Howard Dean site. But what they did on this site is, on the next screen you'll see, they made a simple page on how to make an Apple parody switcher video for the I Switch to Dean campaign, and this page, however you felt about Howard Dean or the campaign, my daughter, for example, used this page, which had a set of instructions which were better than anything I had ever seen. She used that to make her first video, which eventually had hundreds of thousands of hits, ended up on one of the little web television shows, because she was 14 at the time, because she made a switcher video. It had nothing to do with Howard Dean, though, but based on the instructions. And that bridged her into doing digital video, which she has pursued to this day. Here's Netflix origami. What to do with your little extra wrapper. I mean, there are things that we can do to give people something that they can do. So when we're asking how to help people kick ass, ask, how can I help them create more interesting content for their blog? How can I make them more interesting on YouTube? Second one, provide motivational opportunities for creative self-expression. Easiest way that people have done this is to do that yard gnome thing where you ask people to submit photos of your thing in the wild. This could be your water quality report. Your city's water quality report, which we know no one reads, but you'll see in a moment some people do. So for example, when the iPod first came out, there were hundreds of thousands of these sites where people would post pictures of their iPod in interesting and exotic locations. And people do it with things that are not so interesting. This is a book publisher. Ask people to send pictures of their book in interesting locations. This is what people found interesting. But suddenly, people start getting creative. And this guy, this is the running of the bulls. There's your water quality report, right? You tap into the creativity and self-expression that people have. So ask, how can I get people to have more interesting comments on their Flickr photos through my, whatever it is, water quality report? Or finally, wrap it in a compelling context. So remember, water quality guide doesn't sound like something that would go on a suit. This is the report that cities, I believe over 3,000 residents, have to give out. Nobody reads them. The city of Bryan, Texas said, we're going to do something about that. They made a calendar for their water quality report. These are the guys who work in the sewers, by the way, the actual employees. They made them pinup models. The calendar is filled with tips and facts about water quality, and they get, Larry, people recognize him on the street. They're like, aren't you December? Or what, So these are the real guys. The next year they had to step it up, and they did movie posters. Flush dance. This is the mayor, which one of the comments we heard is that was a makeover for him. People said, look, he's having fun. So lock, stock, two. These are the real guys. These are the guys who literally have the crappiest jobs in the city, and now they're superstars. And then the next year they used the comic book thing. And of course we have heroes, which are the guys that, work in the sewers. And then we have the villains, which are Grease and, backflow. The point is they said they got so many comments and so much feedback. Everybody reads this thing. I won't read you the comments from them. You can go to the Bryan, Texas website and see that, though. But what if you don't have a budget? Here's the thing I'll leave you with. You know the answer to this. If you don't have a budget to produce a calendar like that, 129,000 Google hits for lolcats translation. So you all know about lolcats. We're pushing the science of translation through by people who are interested in doing what we think of as silly internet memes. This is a wiki page. Here you go. This is a wiki page devoted to translating the Bible into lolcat. The last time I looked, it was at 61%. You can go to the bookstore today and buy the lolcat Bible. The lolcat Bible. So here's what you do with your water quality report that nobody reads and you don't have a budget. You ask the local high schools, you sponsor a contest. You have them translate your water quality report into lolcat with pictures, and the citizens in that town and the cats will never be the same, and people will flush their toilet just a little bit differently after that because they cannot translate into lolcat with pictures what they don't read. And the next thing you know, they cannot help it. Their brain is connected to water quality. What we're doing here, what all you are doing by helping people get a little bit better at something and a little bit better and a little bit better, we're increasing the resolution, the bit depth, the sampling rate of the world. And that feels like a superpower to me. So I'm proud to be here with all of you. Thank you.